A 7-year-old girl was selling cookies on the street to support her sick mother. While helping her, a wealthy businessman discovers that she is the daughter of his deceased ex-wife. He decides to adopt her, facing rejection from his current family. But the love between them transforms old wounds into a new beginning. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. Let's continue. I promise this will be the best story you will ever hear in your life. The biting June wind swept through the streets of Charleston's historic Battery, bringing with it the smell of rain and salty air. Framed by the colorful townhouses of Rainbow Row, Victoria, a 7-year-old girl, arranged coconut and guava paste cookies on an embroidered cloth, a heritage from her grandmother. Her bare feet felt the cold of the ancient cobblestones, but she kept a smile on her face as she offered her goods to passing tourists and residents. "Fresh cookies, sir. Made early this morning by my mother," she said with a voice that mixed sweetness and determination. That was no child's play. Each cookie sold meant a few more dollars to buy medicine for Selena, who had been battling an illness that drained her strength for months. The community clinic in their outlying neighborhood often lacked the necessary medications, and pharmacy prices consumed almost all of Selena's meager earnings as a seamstress when her pains allowed. A dark cloud covered the sun, announcing heavy rain. Tourists began to disperse, seeking shelter. Victoria hastily packed the few remaining cookies into her cloth bag and counted the coins, $27. It wasn't enough, but it was what she had. As the first drops began to fall, she ran to get her rusty bicycle leaning against a pole. It was then that she noticed, huddled against the wall of St. Michael's Church, a boy smaller than her, hugging his knees. He shivered from the cold, his purplish lips contrasting with his brown skin. He wore only a thin t-shirt and shorts, with no warm clothing to protect him from the falling temperature. Around them, people hurried past, looking at the sky and quickening their pace, completely ignoring the little boy. Victoria stopped. She looked at her own jacket, the only one she owned, a gift from her mother on her last birthday. Without hesitation, she approached the boy. "Hi, are you cold?" she asked, already taking off her jacket. The boy, who appeared to be about 5 years old, looked up, startled. "I'm looking for my dad. He told me to wait here, but it's been a long time," he replied with a trembling voice. Victoria placed the jacket on his shoulders. "Here, this will warm you up." "What's your name?" "Peter," he replied timidly, shrinking into the jacket that was too big for him. "I'm Victoria. How long have you been waiting?" "I don't know. My dad went to talk to a man and said he'd be right back." The rain intensified. Victoria looked around, worried. She couldn't leave the boy there. "Come with me, Peter. I'll take you to Celia's community center. It's nearby. They have hot chocolate there, and we can call your dad." After a brief hesitation, Peter accepted. Victoria helped him onto the back of her bicycle and, pedaling against the wind and rain, rode through the cobblestone streets to the French Quarter Community Center, a renovated mansion that served as a support point for residents and children of the neighborhood. Celia, an elderly black woman with white hair and a welcoming smile, greeted the drenched children with towels and 2 mugs of hot chocolate. Peter, still wrapped in Victoria's jacket, explained that his father was Gustav Mendonça, a businessman who had come to Charleston for a business meeting. "Mendonça? From the Mendonça Construction Group?" Celia asked, surprised. "It's one of the largest construction companies in the country." Victoria watched Peter sip the chocolate. Even under his simple wet clothes, it was noticeable that the fabric was of good quality, unlike the thrift store t-shirts she wore. "Do you have your father's phone number?" Celia asked. Peter shook his head negatively, tears in his eyes. "He keeps it in his pocket. I forgot to memorize it." Celia was about to pick up the phone to call the police when the center's door burst open violently. A tall man in a drenched suit and desperate expression stormed in, followed by 2 men in suits. "Peter." "My son, Dad." The boy ran into the man's arms, who hugged him as if his life depended on it. "Where were you?" "I went back to our meeting point and you weren't there. I almost went crazy." Gustav Mendonça's voice wavered between relief and reprimand. The rain came. "Dad, and that young lady helped me." Peter pointed to Victoria, who shyly recoiled in her corner, holding her bag of cookies. It was then that Gustav truly noticed Victoria. He saw her bare feet, her simple wet clothes, her bag of homemade cookies. His gaze dropped to his son, who wore the colorful jacket, clearly feminine and too small to be an adult's. "Was it you who helped my son?" Victoria nodded, embarrassed. "He was cold. She gave me her jacket and brought me here on her bicycle, Dad," Peter explained, pointing to the rusty object leaning against the wall. Gustav looked at the girl with new eyes. In front of him was a poor barefoot child, selling cookies in the rain, who did not hesitate to give her only jacket to a stranger, and even risked herself in the storm to take his son to a safe place. "What's your name, dear?" he asked, kneeling to be at her height. "Victoria Smith, sir." "Victoria. That appropriate name." He smiled. "You saved my Peter. How can I thank you?" The girl shrugged. "You don't have to thank me, sir. Anyone would do that." But both knew that wasn't true. Dozens of adults had passed the boy without stopping. "Are you selling cookies?" Gustav asked, noticing the bag. "Yes, sir. To buy medicine for my mother. She's sick." A shadow crossed Gustav's face. 2 years ago he had lost his wife, Beatrice, to a rare illness. Since then he had raised Peter alone with the help of a housekeeper. "I want to buy all your cookies," he said, taking out his wallet. "In fact, are you in a hurry to go back?" "I'd like to meet your mother." Victoria hesitated. "She gets worried if I take too long, sir." "I understand. Can I take you home?" "I have my car outside." After consulting Celia with a look and receiving an affirmative nod, after all, everyone there knew the Mendonça name, Victoria accepted. They said goodbye to Celia, with Gustav leaving a generous donation for the community centre. On the way to North Charleston, where Victoria lived with her mother, the contrast could not have been greater. From the executive car with a driver, the girl indicated the way through increasingly narrow and precarious streets until they reached a small unfinished brick house, with asbestos tiles and a small yard where chickens scratched, protected from the rain by a makeshift shed. Selina received the entourage with surprise and distrust. Pale and visibly debilitated, she leaned on a makeshift cane but maintained dignity in her gaze. Upon hearing the story from the businessman himself, her eyes welled up. "Victoria has always been like this since she was little. She has a heart bigger than herself," she said proudly, stroking her daughter's curly hair. That rainy afternoon, while Peter played with the chickens in the yard, fascinated by the novelty, Gustav and Selina talked at length. He explained that he was a widower, that he managed the empire built by his father, and how he had been blindly ambitious until he lost his wife and almost lost his son to a kidnapping in Miami, which made him move to Charleston seeking a quieter life. Before saying goodbye, Gustav made a proposal that would forever change the destiny of that family. "Selina, I have a guest house on my property in Isle of Palms facing the ocean. It's a quiet place with fresh air, perfect for your recovery. I would like to invite you and Victoria to live there, for as long as you need. I will arrange medical treatment for you and a good school for Victoria." Selina paled. "Mr. Mendonça, I appreciate your generosity, but we cannot accept charity." "It's not charity, Selina. It's gratitude. Your daughter did something no adult did. She saw my son when everyone ignored him. Consider it a formal contract. Guaranteed housing for 20 years, continuous medical treatment, and a fund for Victoria's education. No quid pro quo, with total freedom to leave whenever you wish." Peter, who had approached unnoticed, tugged Victoria's hand. "Please, come live at our house. There's a huge swing in the garden and a pool. You can teach me how to ride a bike." Mother and daughter exchanged glances. The proposal was tempting, but Selina's pride made her hesitate. However, a severe coughing fit seized her, reminding her of her fragile reality and Victoria's uncertain future should anything happen to her. On the doorstep, before they said goodbye, Gustav left his card and an envelope with enough money for a month's worth of medicine. "Think it over carefully, Selina. My offer has no expiration date." As the car drove away, Victoria waved to Peter, who enthusiastically waved back from the window. Mother and daughter remained embraced under the eaves of the house, watching the rain, which now fell more softly, as if announcing better times. What none of them knew was that this casual encounter would forever change the course of their lives, intertwining destinies in ways they could never imagine. 2 weeks passed since the encounter at the community centre. Selina's health had worsened considerably, with high fevers and a cough that seemed to tear at her chest. The medications bought with Gustav's money helped alleviate the symptoms. But the doctor at the local clinic was clear. She needed specialized and continuous treatment. It was on a timidly sunny afternoon that Victoria, sitting beside her mother's bed, heard knocks at the door. Upon opening it, she found Gustav Mendonça and his son Peter, who held a colorful drawing in his hands. "I brought this for you," Peter said, handing her the sheet where he had drawn two girls holding hands under a big yellow sun. "This is you and this is me. Only I drew myself as a girl because I don't know how to draw boys properly," he explained, bringing a smile to Victoria's face. While the children talked in the small living room, Gustav asked to see Selina. Upon entering the modest bedroom, where the smell of eucalyptus and medicine hung in the air, he found her more debilitated than he imagined. He sat on the edge of the bed and held her thin hands. "Selina, I came personally to reiterate my invitation. You need care that you won't get here." This time, with diminished strength and growing fear for her daughter's future, Selina didn't resist as much. "I can work at your house, Mr. Gustav. When I get better, I can cook, clean—" "The only thing you're going to do is recover," he interrupted gently. "If you want to help later when you're strong, we can talk. But this is not an exchange of services." 3 days later, a car with a driver parked in front of the small house to pick up Selina and Victoria. Their few clothes and personal belongings fit into 2 worn suitcases. The neighborhood watched with curiosity this unusual departure, with whispers and theories about the sudden fortune of the seamstress and her daughter. "She's going to become a servant for the rich," commented one neighbor. "I heard she's a distant relative," speculated another. Victoria, sitting in the back seat of the luxurious car, looked for the last time at the only house she had ever known. A mixture of fear and excitement stirred her heart, while her mother, with closed eyes, seemed to surrender to the destiny that awaited them. Gustav's property in Isle of Palms was a hidden paradise between high walls and lush gardens. The main house, with modern architecture and large glass windows, stood imposing, while the guest house, a smaller but equally elegant construction, was a few feet away, connected by a stone path through flowering gardens. "Welcome to your new home," Gustav announced, opening the door to the guest house. The interior was airy, with light furniture and simple decor. There were 2 spacious bedrooms, a living room, an equipped kitchen, and a veranda with an ocean view. Victoria's eyes shone before so much space and comfort. She had never seen such a beautiful house inside, except in the soap operas she occasionally watched on her neighbor's television. Selina, in turn, seemed intimidated, as if fearing to touch the furniture and objects. "Make yourselves at home," Gustav said. "Tanya, our housekeeper, showed you where everything is. Tomorrow Dr. Maurice will come to examine you, Selina, and on Monday I will take Victoria to see the school." In the first few days, the adaptation was gradual. Selina spent most of her time resting, following the instructions of the private doctor hired by Gustav. Victoria divided her time between caring for her mother and exploring the surroundings with Peter, who had become her inseparable companion. Together, they built forts with sheets in the library, swam in the pool — Victoria learned to swim in a week — and did homework at the large rosewood table in the living room. The children's laughter once again filled the house that had been silent since Beatrice's passing. At night, when everyone gathered for dinner in the main house, Gustav's insistence that they not isolate themselves, Victoria discreetly observed table manners, imitating how Peter held his cutlery or how Gustav used his napkin. She learned quickly, eager to adapt to that new world. With proper treatment, Selina's health began to visibly improve. Color returned to her cheeks, her cough diminished, and soon she could walk around the property without help. Gustav kept his promise. A formal contract was signed, guaranteeing housing for 20 years, continuous medical treatment, and an education fund for Victoria. "You are a man of your word," Selina said as she signed the document, tears in her eyes. "I believe we should take care of each other, Selina. That's what your daughter taught me that rainy day." When it was time for Victoria to start her studies at the Charleston Academy, a prestigious private institution in Charleston, the girl's enthusiasm gave way to anxiety. Accustomed to the public school in her neighborhood, where most children shared similar stories of struggle and simplicity, she would now be among the children of Charleston's elite. On the first day, Gustav made a point of taking her personally. Along with Peter, who studied at the same school. As they crossed the gates of the imposing building, Victoria unconsciously squeezed Peter's hand, who returned it with a comforting squeeze. "Everything will be fine," he whispered. "I'll introduce you to everyone." The reality, however, was harsher than the childish promise. Although the teachers were attentive and some classmates receptive, Victoria soon felt the weight of being different. Her pronounced accent from North Charleston, her cultural references, even the way she expressed herself, all denounced her as an intruder in that environment. "She's living on Peter's charity," some girls whispered during recess. "I heard her mother is going to be the new housekeeper," others speculated. "My mom said it's a charity case," a classmate with blonde, impeccably styled hair pricked, loud enough for Victoria to hear. Swallowing her tears, Victoria tried to concentrate on her studies. She was intelligent and diligent, characteristics that soon caught the attention of her teachers. But social acceptance was a more difficult territory to conquer. One afternoon, upon arriving home with her uniform stained with soda, an accident caused by a classmate, Victoria finally broke down. Between sobs, she told Peter how displaced and rejected she felt. "They look at me like I'm from another planet," she whimpered. Gustav, who was passing through the hallway, heard the conversation and entered the room. He sat on the bed between the two children and gently asked what had happened. After hearing the tearful account, he sighed deeply. "Victoria, I'm going to tell you a secret," he began in a soft voice. "When I was your age, I was also a scholarship student at an elite school. My father worked as a construction foreman for the Mendonça family, the owners of the construction company. It was only later, when he saved the owner's son during a construction accident, that our lives changed." Victoria's eyes widened. "You too, sir?" "Yes, I know exactly what it's like to be looked down upon, to be the charity case." He made air quotes. "But do you know what I learned? That our worth is not in what others think of us, but in what we know we are." "And what am I?" Victoria asked, still insecure. "You are an extraordinary girl who gave her only jacket to a stranger on a rainy day. You are brave, kind, and very, very intelligent. And now," he took the hands of both children, "you are part of this family." Peter nodded emphatically. "You're like my sister now." The word family echoed in Victoria's heart with unexpected force. Family, something that had always been just her and her mother, now expanded to include Gustav and Peter. In the following months, with constant support at home, Victoria began to feel more secure at school. Her exemplary grades and her skill in music classes, where she showed a natural talent for the guitar, began to win the reluctant respect of her classmates. "Don't mind what they say, dear," Selina advised as she braided her daughter's hair before school. "Always be yourself. That's how you won the hearts of your Gustav and Peter." Life on the Isle of Palms property had settled into a comfortable routine. In the morning, the children went to school with the driver. Selina, now recovered, occupied her time with small voluntary tasks around the house, especially in the kitchen, where her low-country recipes won everyone over. In the afternoon, Victoria and Peter swam, played, or did homework in the library. Gustav, despite a packed schedule at the construction company, always reserved the early evening to be with the children, listening about their day or helping with a difficult task. On weekends, they took trips along the coast, visited artisan markets, or simply stayed home, enjoying each other's company. It was a harmony none of them expected to find, but which they had built day after day with patience and affection. What they didn't know was that this harmony would be threatened sooner than they imagined. 200 miles away, in a mansion on the Savannah coast, Helen Mendonça, Gustav's sister-in-law and Beatrice's sister, planned her next visit to Charleston. Determined to understand what she considered an unacceptable replacement of her sister and a threat to her nephew's inheritance. "Two unknowns of dubious origin living with my brother-in-law and nephew. This will not stand," she murmured to herself, marking the date on her calendar. Beatrice deserves more respect for her memory. 2 years passed since Victoria and Selina moved to Gustav's property. What began as a temporary arrangement transformed into a true family. Victoria, now 9 years old, had perfectly adapted to school and no longer suffered so much from her classmates' prejudice. Her exemplary grades and musical talent had earned her respect, and some sincere friendships began to flourish. Selina, fully recovered, had informally taken over the administration of the house, coordinating meals and ensuring everything ran perfectly. Her presence brought a warmth that had been missing from that house since Beatrice's passing. Gustav, in turn, seemed rejuvenated, as if the presence of these two people had filled a void that had been silently consuming him. It was a Sunday morning when Helen Mendonça arrived unannounced. Tall, elegant, with Peter's same green eyes, a heritage from Beatrice, she stepped out of the imported car with a severe expression that did not match the family occasion. "Aunt Helen!" Peter ran to hug her, genuinely happy to see her. "My prince," she smiled, hugging her nephew while her eyes swept the garden, stopping at Victoria, who was picking flowers for the lunch table. "And who is this young lady?" Before Peter could answer, Gustav appeared on the veranda. "Helen, what a surprise! I didn't know you were coming." "Evidently," she replied with a cold smile. "We need to talk, Gustav. In private." In the main house's library, with the door closed, Helen wasted no time with subtleties. "What do you think you're doing, Gustav?" "All of Savannah is talking about how you've adopted a street girl and her mother." "I haven't adopted anyone, Helen," he replied calmly. "I offered help to people who needed it, and who by coincidence also helped Peter and me a great deal." "Coincidence?" Helen raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "A poor girl casually finds your son, saves him, and you conveniently offer your home." "I'm not naive." "What are you implying?" "That you're trying to replace Beatrice, to create a new family as if my sister never existed." Gustav took a deep breath, containing the anger that began to pulse in his temples. "No one could replace Beatrice, and you know that. She was unique. What I have with Selina and Victoria is different. It's a friendship, mutual support. You lost the custody battle for Peter once, remember? When you tried to take my nephew from me right after Beatrice's funeral. I was grieving, Helen. I thought Peter would be better with you while I recovered. But you tried to alienate him from me completely. The judge saw that. The judge saw your money, that's what. And now I see you building a case to show how you've formed a stable family in case I try again." She moved closer, menacingly. "I will not allow these people to usurp my sister's place in Peter's life." Outside the library, Victoria, who had entered to leave fresh flowers, froze when she heard her name. It wasn't her intention to listen to other people's conversations, but now she was paralyzed, unable to move. "Helen, you're being irrational." Gustav's voice sounded controlled, but with an underlying tension. "Peter is happy, healthy, and loved. Isn't that what matters? What matters is Beatrice's memory and Peter's future. Do you think I know who these people really are? What do we know about this girl's father, for example? Have you checked Selina's past?" Victoria felt a chill. Her father. That name that was never mentioned in her house, that absence her mother had turned into silence. That same afternoon, while Helen monopolized Peter's attention with expensive gifts and exaggerated stories about the mother he barely remembered, Selina received an official letter from the South Carolina Correctional System. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. The letter informed her, in bureaucratic and impersonal language, that Anthony Charles Smith, imprisoned for financial fraud 7 years earlier, had passed away in his cell due to cardiac complications 3 weeks prior. As his ex-wife and mother of his only daughter, Selina was officially notified. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Selina let the tears roll silently. She didn't cry for the man who had abandoned her pregnant, who had chosen the easy path of scams and trickery. She cried for the guilty relief she felt, for the weight that lifted from her shoulders, with the certainty that he would never return to disturb the new life they had built. But there was more. At the bottom of the letter, a notice about personal belongings that could be collected by family members. Selina knew she needed to go, needed to make sure there was nothing that could threaten Victoria or her future. The next morning, taking advantage of Helen having taken Peter and Victoria for a stroll in the Battery, a transparent attempt to win over the girl or find fault, Selina asked Gustav's driver to take her to the correctional complex on the outskirts of Charleston. The place was grey and oppressive, but the procedures were surprisingly quick. A cardboard box contained Anthony's few belongings, some clothes, a cheap watch, yellowed photographs, and a sealed envelope addressed to Selina, returned by mail months earlier with the stamp addressee unknown. Back home, locked in her room, Selina opened the envelope with a racing heart. The letter, handwritten in Anthony's nervous script, was dated 2 years prior. Selina, if you are reading this, I am probably no longer among the living. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness for what I did, for abandoning you and our daughter. But I need you to know the truth. Before I was arrested, I worked for dangerous people. I did things I deeply regret. Among them, I participated in an attempted blackmail against Mendonça Construction. Yes, the same company as the man who now hosts you. I found out by chance, through news that reaches me in here. In safe deposit box number 4371 at the National Bank, there are documents that can incriminate powerful people. The key is hidden in the lining of the jewelry box I gave you on our last wedding anniversary. I don't know if these documents still have value, but they could be your guarantee of security if something goes wrong. Take care of our daughter. Tell her that, despite everything, her father loved her in his own twisted way. Anthony. Selina's hands trembled as she finished reading. The jewelry box, she still had it, kept at the bottom of a suitcase, more for the sentimental value of her grandmother's few jewels than for any memory of Anthony. Rummaging through her things, she found the small carved wooden box. The red velvet lining was loose in one corner. Lifting it, she found a small golden key. For a moment, Selina considered going to the bank, finding out what was in the safe deposit box. But something stopped her. This new life they were building was too precious to be risked. Any connection to Anthony's obscure past could destroy everything. With determination, she lit the small fireplace in her room, an unnecessary luxury in South Carolina, but one Gustav had insisted on installing in all suites. She threw the letter into the flames and watched the paper writhe until it turned to ashes. The key, however, she hesitated with. That small piece of metal could be important someday, a last safeguard. She decided to keep it hidden inside a small lavender sachet she kept among her intimate clothes. A secret that she hoped would never need to be revealed. That night, during dinner, Helen observed attentively the interactions between Peter, Victoria, Gustav, and Selina. There was a naturalness, a harmony that deeply bothered her. It looked like a family, and that she could not accept. Peter told me you play the guitar very well, Victoria, Helen commented, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. From whom did you inherit that talent? From your mother or your father? The table fell silent. Selina visibly stiffened, while Victoria looked at her plate, uncomfortable. Helen, Gustav warned in a low tone. It's just an innocent question, she replied, feigning surprise. After all, we know everything about Selina, but Victoria's father is a mystery. Does he never visit? Never send presents? Victoria looked up, meeting Gustav's compassionate gaze. My father left us when I was a baby, she replied with surprising dignity for someone so young. I have no memories of him. What a shame, Helen continued, relentless. I wonder if he knows how lucky you've been. To go from misery to living in this palace. It's almost like a fairy tale, isn't it? Enough! Gustav slammed his hand on the table, making the cutlery clatter. You are my guest, Helen, but that doesn't give you the right to be cruel. Peter watched the scene with wide eyes, confused by the tension between the adults he loved. Cruel. I'm being realistic, Gustav. You opened the doors of your house, the house that was my sister's, to complete strangers. Aren't you curious about their past? I know their character, and that's enough for me. Helen gave a short, humorless laugh. Character? You've always been naive, brother-in-law. People are rarely what they seem. Later, after Helen retired to the guest room and the children went to sleep, Gustav and Selina met on the veranda. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken words. I'm sorry for Helen's behavior, he said finally. She never got over her sister's loss. I understand her pain, Selina replied softly. And she's not entirely wrong, Gustav. You took us in knowing very little about us. I know enough. Not about him. Selina hesitated. Victoria's father. Gustav turned to her, surprised by the unexpected openness. Anthony abandoned me when I was pregnant. I later found out he was involved in fraud, small scams. He was arrested when Victoria was a few months old. She took a deep breath. I received the news today. He passed away in prison a few weeks ago. I'm sorry, Selina. Don't be. He was never a father to Victoria. But I'm afraid that his past somehow might tarnish her future. Gustav took Selina's hands in his. The past doesn't define who we are, Selina. Look at Peter and Victoria. They are creating something new, something beautiful. We won't let old Ghost destroy that." Selina nodded, tears in her eyes. She wanted to tell Gustav everything. About the letter, about the disturbing connection between Anthony and Mendonça Construction. But fear paralyzed her. What if this revelation destroyed the trust he placed in them? What if Helen was right and he expelled them? "You're right, Gustav. The important thing is the present and the future we are building for our children." That night, Selina took a long time to fall asleep. In her restless dream, she saw Victoria growing, flourishing, becoming a brilliant young woman, only for everything to be destroyed by shadows of the past, materializing into documents, keys, and old safe deposit boxes. She woke up with a start, certain that she needed to protect her daughter at all costs, even if it meant burying the truth even deeper. What Selina didn't know was that Helen, before leaving the next morning, would make a call that would set in motion forces that would threaten everything they had built. In her hotel room in Savannah, with a glass of whiskey in hand, she would dial an old contact. "I want everything on Selina Smith and her daughter Victoria, especially about the girl's father. Dig deep no matter the cost. There's something wrong with this story, and I'm going to find out what it is." 5 years passed. The summer sun warmed the Isle of Palms property, where purple and pink bougainvillea framed the entrance to the main house. Sitting on the veranda, Victoria, now 14, flipped through a university catalogue with a concentrated expression. Her curly hair, once always tied in tight braids, now formed a natural crown she had learned to love, part of an identity that grew stronger every day. Peter, 12 years old, lay in the hammock nearby, distractedly playing on his tablet, casting occasional glances at his sister. "USC, CoFC, UF, Victoria murmured, marking pages with small coloured stickers. "So many possibilities." "It's still an eternity until you go to college," Peter complained without taking his eyes off the screen. "And they're all far from here." Victoria smiled, recognizing his disguised concern. 3 years isn't an eternity, Peter, and who said I'm going far? CoFC is right here." "I know you want to go to California," he replied, with that perceptiveness that always surprised her. "Ever since we visited last year and you saw that music conservatory." It was true. The trip to California for a youth music festival had broadened Victoria's horizons. Her talent for classical composition and guitar had been noticed by a professor at a national conservatory who had encouraged her to consider a career in music. "I'm just researching options," she deflected, closing the catalogue. "Besides, I still have college entrance exams ahead. I need to study a lot." The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted the conversation. Selina crossed the garden, carrying a tray with passion fruit juice and stuffed tapiocas. In Victoria's eyes, her mother seemed more tired in recent months, with a pallor that the South Carolina heat could not disguise. "I brought you a snack," Selina announced, placing the tray on the small table on the veranda. "Studying so much in this heat, you'll end up dehydrated." "Are you okay, Mom?" Victoria asked, noticing how Selina discreetly held the edge of the table for support. "Of course, dear, just a little tired. Didn't sleep well last night." She smiled, waving away the concern with a gesture. "How are the college plans coming along?" "Victoria wants to go to California," Peter reported, grabbing a tapioca. "She wants to abandon me here." "Peter," Victoria nudged him with her foot, blushing. Selina smiled at both of them, but her eyes held a shadow that Victoria couldn't decipher. "There's still time for that, and wherever it is, I'm sure you two will never lose touch." At that moment, Gustav arrived in his car, returning from a meeting at the construction company. Seeing him park, Peter ran to greet him, while Victoria remained on the veranda, observing the interaction between the two. Although they did not share blood ties with Gustav, both considered him a father figure, the difference was that Peter was legally his son, while she and her mother, despite all the affection and integration, technically remained long-term guests. "Good afternoon, family," Gustav greeted, approaching with Peter clinging to his arm as when he was younger. "What do we have for a snack?" Selina's smile upon seeing him still had the same shy sparkle from years ago. The two maintained a relationship of deep respect and friendship, although any attentive observer could notice the special affection between them. something that had never been verbalized or openly acknowledged. "Tapioca and passion fruit juice," Selina replied. "I just brought them." "Perfect for this heat." Gustav sat down, loosening his tie. "So, how was your day? Any news?" "Victoria is planning to abandon us to study in California," Peter repeated, with exaggerated dramatics. "I'm not planning to abandon anyone," Victoria defended herself, rolling her eyes. "I'm just considering options for the future." "California is a great city to study music," Gustav commented, taking a glass of juice. "But COFC also has an excellent program. The important thing is that you follow your dream, Victoria, wherever it is." The way he spoke, always with that unwavering certainty in her potential, warmed Victoria's heart. Gustav had never treated Peter and her differently, except in legal matters, where reality imposed itself. "Do you have time to hear me play my new composition after dinner?" she asked, excited. "I finished it last night." "Wouldn't miss it for anything," Gustav assured, with a genuine smile. The conversation continued light and relaxed, as afternoons usually were on the Isle of Palms property. However, when Selina stood up to collect the tray, a sudden loss of balance made her stumble. The glass she was holding slipped from her fingers, shattering on the ceramic floor. "Mom!" Victoria jumped up, supporting her. "It was nothing," Selina tried to reassure, but her face had lost all color. "Just a dizzy spell." Gustav was already beside them, supporting Selina by the other arm. "Let's get her inside. Peter, call Dr. Maurice, please." 2 hours later, at the private hospital where Gustav had insisted on taking Selina, despite her protests, the family waited anxiously in the corridor. Victoria paced back and forth, biting her nails, a childhood habit that resurfaced in moments of stress. Peter sat beside her, holding her hand in silence, while Gustav spoke in a low voice with the doctor a few feet away, the grave expression on Dr. Maurice's face made Victoria's heart clench. When Gustav returned, his demeanor tried to maintain composure, but there was an evident tension in his jaw. "What did he say?" Victoria asked immediately. Gustav sat between the two teenagers, putting an arm around each one. "Dr. Maurice wants to run more tests. Your mother is anemic, Victoria, and there are other indicators that concerned him. She will be hospitalized tonight." "Can I see her?" "Of course. She's asking for you." In the hospital room, with supposedly calming light blue walls, Selina seemed to have aged years in a few weeks. Her body, always thin, was now almost skeletal, and her once vibrant skin had acquired a translucent pallor. Victoria sat in the chair beside the bed, taking her mother's hand in hers. "I'm here, Mom," she whispered, as if hoping that, even sedated, Selina could hear her. "I won't leave your side." Gustav, standing at the foot of the bed, watched the scene with a heavy heart. In the past 7 years, Selina had become more than a friend or a guest. She was a companion, someone with whom he shared the joys and worries of raising the children, someone whose shy smile brightened his days. They had never defined what existed between them, but the possibility of losing her was unbearable. "I'll get us some coffee," he said, lightly touching Victoria's shoulder before leaving. Alone with her mother, Victoria allowed herself to cry openly. "Don't leave me, Mom," she pleaded softly. "We still have so much to live for together." As if she had heard her daughter's appeal, Selina slowly opened her eyes. For a moment, she seemed disoriented until her gaze met Victoria's. "My daughter." Her voice was just a whisper. "So glad you're here." "Mom!" Victoria rose, leaning over the bed. "Don't strain yourself. The doctor said you need to rest." "No," Selina tried to adjust herself with difficulty. "I need to tell you something." "It's important. You can tell me later when you're stronger." "We're not sure there will be a later, my daughter." The words fell like stones on Victoria's heart. "Don't say that. You'll be fine. They're talking about taking you to California for special treatment." A sad smile passed over Selina's parched lips. "Victoria, we need to be realistic. There's something you need to know about your father." At that moment, however, the monitors began to emit alert sounds. Selina felt a sharp pain in her chest, her body arching in the bed. Victoria desperately pressed the emergency button. Seconds later, the room was invaded by nurses and doctors. Victoria was moved to the corridor where she found Gustav returning with 2 cups of coffee. Seeing her expression, he dropped the cups, running to hug her. "She was awake," Victoria sobbed against his chest. "She wanted to tell me something about my father and then—" Gustav hugged her tighter, speechless to console that pain. Over her shoulder, he watched the frantic movement in Selina's room, medical orders being shouted, the emergency cart being rushed in. After what seemed like an eternity, Dr. Maurice emerged from the room with an exhausted expression. "We managed to stabilize her," he announced, "but we need to transfer her to the ICU immediately." The days that followed were a blur for Victoria. Between school, which she attended only to maintain an appearance of normalcy, and the hospital, where she spent every free minute, her life had been reduced to an agonizing wait. Peter, with his sensitivity beyond his age, became her constant support. He accompanied her to the hospital whenever possible, brought snacks when she forgot to eat, and sometimes just sat silently beside her, offering the comfort of his presence. One night, while Peter and Victoria kept each other company in the ICU waiting room, Dr. Maurice appeared with a nurse. His demeanor was serious, but there was a firm resolve in his eyes. "Victoria, your mother has regained consciousness and is asking to see you. Just for a few minutes. Is she better?" Peter asked hopefully. The doctor hesitated. "She is lucid. Make the most of this moment, Victoria." Dressed in a gown, mask and gloves, Victoria entered the cold, technological environment of the ICU. Selina was connected to various machines, but her eyes were open and alert. Seeing her daughter, a faint smile lit up her face. "My girl," she called, extending her hand. Victoria rushed to take it. "Mom, you gave us such a scare." "Victoria, listen." Selina's voice was weak but determined. "I don't have much time. There's something you need to know. Mom, please rest. And we can talk when—" "No, daughter. It's about your father. About the past. There are things I kept hidden to protect you." Victoria felt a chill. "What things, Mom?" Selina breathed with difficulty, gathering strength. "Your father. He worked for Mendonça Construction before he was arrested. There was a disagreement. He tried to blackmail the company." The revelation hit Victoria like a blow. "Gustav's company? My father tried to blackmail Gustav." "Not Gustav directly, but the company, yes. I found out years ago after we were already living here." Selina coughed, her breathing becoming more labored. "I was afraid to tell, that it could destroy everything we built. But now you need to know because Helen is investigating, and if she finds out—" "How do you know Helen is investigating?" "Gustav told me. He received a call from an ethical investigator who refused to continue the work for her." Selina squeezed her daughter's hand with surprising strength. "There's a key, Victoria. In the lavender sachet among my things. Your father said it opens a safe deposit box with documents. I never looked for it, never wanted to know. But it might be important now." The nurse appeared at the door, signaling that time was up. Selina, however, was not finished. "Promise me, Victoria. Promise you won't let this destroy what you and Peter have. What Gustav did for us. Our meeting that rainy day was real. It was destiny. Not a trap like Helen wants to make it seem." "Of course I promise, Mom, but you'll be fine. You'll be able to explain all this in person." A sad smile passed over Selina's lips. "My love, look at me in my eyes. Know that everything I did was for love of you, always, and tell Gustav. Tell him these years were the happiest of my life." The nurse entered, this time more insistent. "We need to end the visit now." Victoria leaned in, kissing her mother's forehead. "I love you, Mum. Rest, I'll be back very early tomorrow." But there would be no tomorrow for Selina Smith. In the early hours of that rainy November night, with the sound of the ocean crashing against the rocks of Isle of Palms in the background, her tired heart finally rested. Her last words, whispered to the nurse holding her hand, were a plea. "Take care of my girl." The funeral was held 2 days later, under a grey sky that seemed to cry with Victoria. The young woman, supported by Gustav on one side and Peter on the other, stood firm, her eyes dry not from lack of pain, but from a shock so profound that tears had not yet found their way out. Helen attended to everyone's surprise. Impeccably dressed in black, she approached Victoria with an expression that tried to convey sorrow. "My condolences, dear," she said, hugging her briefly. "Your mother was an admirable woman." Victoria merely nodded, unable to respond. Beside her, Gustav watched his sister-in-law with thinly veiled suspicion. That night, back in the house that now seemed strangely empty, Victoria finally allowed herself to break down. Sitting in the room she had shared with her mother for 7 years, she cried until no more tears remained, clutching Selina's favorite shawl, which still held her scent. When the first ray of sun entered through the window, announcing a new day, Victoria rose, determined. Her mother's last words echoed in her mind. The key, the lavender sachet, the secrets of the past that needed to be confronted. With trembling hands, she opened the closet where Selina's personal belongings were kept. Among the carefully folded clothes, she found the small purple sachet, embroidered with lavender dreams. Opening it, a small golden key fell into her palm. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Victoria contemplated the object that could change everything. Part of her wanted to throw it away, to bury the past forever. But she knew that was not what Selina would want. Her mother wanted her to face the truth, to protect the family they had built. She put the key in her pocket and went down to the kitchen, where she found Gustav preparing coffee. He looked as worn as she did, with deep dark circles under his eyes and a pallor that revealed sleepless nights. "Good morning," he greeted softly. "Did you manage to get some sleep?" Victoria shook her head. "We need to talk, Gustav, about something my mother told me before her last crisis." Gustav indicated the chair at the table. "I'm all ears." In a firm voice, despite the lump in her throat, Victoria recounted the conversation with Selina, the revelation about her father, the connection with the construction company, the safe deposit box key, the fear that Helen would find out and use it against them. As she spoke, she observed Gustav's reactions, surprise, understanding, and finally a resolute calm. "Your mother told me about your father a few years ago," he revealed, to Victoria's astonishment. "Not all the details, but enough for me to understand her concern. And you weren't angry? You didn't suspect us?" Gustav smiled sadly. "Why would I suspect? You were 7 when we met, Victoria. And your mother? Well, she was the most honest person I've ever known. I knew that if there was any prior connection, it was pure coincidence. But Helen won't think that. Helen sees ghosts where none exist," he sighed, taking a sip of coffee. "What do you plan to do with the key?" Victoria took it from her pocket, placing it on the table. "I don't know. Part of me wants to know what's in that safe deposit box. Another part prefers never to find out." Before Gustav could answer, the phone rang. He answered, his expression changing immediately. After a brief conversation, he hung up, visibly perturbed. "That was my lawyer. Helen filed a petition for review of Peter's custody, alleging an improper family environment after your mother's passing." Victoria felt her blood run cold. She didn't waste any time. "There's more," Gustav continued, his voice tense. "She attached a dossier about your father, Victoria. Documents that supposedly prove our meeting was not a coincidence, but an elaborate scheme by Selina to get close to me, possibly for some kind of revenge or extortion." Anger rose in Victoria's chest, hot and suffocating. "That's a lie. My mother never... We didn't even know who you were that day." "I know that." Gustav held her hands across the table. "But we need to be prepared. Helen is influential and has resources." At that moment, Peter entered the kitchen, still in his pajamas, his eyes swollen with sleep and sadness. Seeing their expressions, he stopped at the door. "What happened?" Gustav and Victoria exchanged glances. How to explain to a 12-year-old child that his aunt was trying to separate him from his father and the person he considered a sister? "Come have breakfast, son," Gustav called, trying to normalize the situation. "We have a lot to talk about." As Peter poured himself juice, Victoria looked at the small golden key on the table. Whatever that safe deposit box held, it was time to face the past. For Selina, for Peter, for the family they had built and that now needed to fight to stay together. The National Bank in downtown Charleston maintained the imposing architecture of the 1950s, with marble columns and a grand atrium that intimidated visitors. Victoria held the small golden key firmly, while Gustav spoke with the manager, who led them to the safe deposit box area. "Safe deposit box 4371, the employee announced, indicating a numbered metal door. "I'll leave you to it. Ring the bell when you're finished." Alone in the small room, Victoria and Gustav exchanged glances. The moment of truth had arrived. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Gustav asked. "We can leave now, throw this key into the ocean and never look back." Victoria took a deep breath. "I need to know, Gustav, for my mother's memory, and to face Helen with the truth, whatever it may be." With slightly trembling hands, she inserted the key into the lock. The mechanism turned smoothly, and the door opened with a metallic click. Inside, a rectangular metal box lay solitary. Victoria removed the box and placed it on the small table in the room. Opening it, she found several documents, old photographs and a sealed envelope with Selina's name handwritten on it. "These are construction company contracts," Gustav murmured, examining some of the papers. "From 15 years ago, when your father worked as an assistant accountant. And here, notes on questionable financial transactions. This is the blackmail material he used against the company?" Victoria asked, feeling uncomfortable diving into the obscure past of the father she had never known. "It seems so. But these are practices that have legally expired, and in any case, they occurred before I took over as president." Gustav flipped through the documents with a serious expression. "Your father discovered schemes of inflated billing on public works and tried to use that to extort money from the board of directors at the time." Shame made Victoria's cheeks burn. "I'm so sorry," she murmured. "You are not to blame for his mistakes, Victoria. Never were." The envelope with Selina's name caught her attention, untouched. Victoria picked it up, hesitant. "Should I open it?" "Das du Budiwes. It's addressed to your mother. Now it belongs to you." Carefully, Victoria broke the seal and removed several folded sheets of paper, covered in the same handwriting as the envelope. She began to read aloud. "Dear Selina, if you are reading this letter, it means something has happened to me, and you have finally found out about the safe deposit box. I don't know how much time has passed, but I hope you and our daughter are well. There are so many things I regret, Selina. Abandoning you both was the worst of them. Fear and greed blinded me. When I saw the opportunity to make easy money with those documents I found at the construction company, I didn't think about the consequences. I never knew if you received my other letters from prison. Probably not, as you moved shortly after my arrest. But I need you to know, those documents in the safe deposit box are dangerous. They could have destroyed many careers at the time. Today, I don't know what value they hold. If by some twist of fate you came close to the Mendonça family without knowing of this connection, don't blame yourself. The universe has strange ways of intertwining the threads of destiny. Our daughter deserves a chance at a better life than I could offer. Protect Victoria. Tell her that, despite everything, her father loved her, even if he didn't know how to show it. With remorse and hope, Anthony." Silent tears streamed down Victoria's face as she finished reading. The letter confirmed what her mother had always said. She didn't know about the connection when they moved into Gustav's house. The encounter on the rainy day had truly been a coincidence of fate, or perhaps something more, a second chance for all of them. "Your mother never lied, Victoria," Gustav said softly. "She found out the truth later, probably received a similar letter, and carried that secret to protect us. And now Helen wants to use that against us. Not if we can prove the truth." Gustav took the letter. "This is our proof. The date here is 5 years ago. Your mother had already been with us for 2 years when Anthony wrote this, assuming she didn't know about the prior connection." Victoria nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "Should we take everything to the lawyer?" "Yes, and we will face Helen head-on." 2 days later, in the conference room of Charleston's most prestigious law firm, Helen Mendonça faced her brother-in-law Gustav, her nephew Peter, and to her surprise Victoria, who entered accompanied by Dr. Robert Anderson, the family lawyer. "I didn't realize this would be a family meeting," Helen commented coldly. "I thought we would discuss legal matters regarding Peter's custody." "And we will, Helen," Gustav replied calmly. "But Victoria has every right to be here. After all, your dossier directly attacks her, as well as Selina's memory." Helen smiled condescendingly. "These aren't attacks, dear brother-in-law. These are facts. Facts you were unaware of when you naively opened your home to these people." "What facts would those be, Aunt Helen?" Victoria asked with a calm that surprised everyone. "That your father was a criminal who tried to blackmail my brother-in-law's company. That your mother, coincidentally, put you in Peter's path that rainy day. That this whole story of charity and kindness is nothing more than an elaborate revenge, or worse, an attempt to get money. Victoria was unfazed. Instead, she opened a folder and placed the documents found in the safe deposit box on the table, including Anthony's letter. "You are partially right. Aunt Helen, my father did try to blackmail Mendonça Construction. He was a weak man who chose the wrong path. But my mother never knew about this until years after we were living with you." Helen picked up the letter, her eyes quickly scanning the lines. Her expression fluctuated between disbelief and frustration. "This only proves he wrote this letter years later. It doesn't prove your mother didn't know before." "The letter was found in a safe deposit box that we only opened yesterday," Gustav interjected. "The key was hidden among Selina's personal belongings. If she knew from the beginning and had ill intentions, why did she never use these documents against me? Furthermore," Dr. Anderson added, "the dossier you presented contains a manipulated chronology. The letter supposedly proving Selina knew about the connection never reached her hands. It was returned to the sender, as evidenced by the postal stamp, and was only found in the safe deposit box now." Helen paled slightly but maintained her composure. "This doesn't change the fact that Peter is living in an unstable environment. First, this woman enters your lives out of nowhere. Now she's gone and leaves an orphan teenager for Gustav to raise. What kind of family is this for my nephew?" "The kind of family that loves him unconditionally," Peter replied, speaking for the first time. His voice, still childish but firm, surprised everyone. "Victoria is my sister, Aunt Helen, no matter what you say. And I want to stay with my dad and with her." "Peter, dear, you're too young to understand." "I understand very well," the boy interrupted. "I understand that ever since Mom left, you've been trying to separate me from Dad. I understand that you don't like Victoria and Aunt Selina just because you think they took Mum's place. But no one took anyone's place. We just formed a new family without forgetting those who left." Helen's eyes shone with unshed tears. "Your mother deserved more respect for her memory. My wife deserved our son to be happy," Gustav replied softly. "And he is happy, Helen. With Victoria, with Selina, while she was with us, with me. We are a different family, but we are a family." "The court will consider Peter's wishes given his age," Dr. Anderson added. "And in light of the new evidence, I believe there is no basis to question custody." Helen looked at everyone present, the reality of her defeat finally setting in. "It was never about money or inheritance," she said finally, her voice choked. "Beatrice trusted me to take care of her son. I feel like I've failed her." "You haven't failed, Helen," Gustav said with unexpected gentleness. "You just didn't realize that there are many ways to honor someone's memory. Beatrice would want Peter to have a loving family, even if it's different from the one she imagined." A heavy silence hung in the room. Finally, Helen discreetly wiped away a tear and stood up. "I will withdraw the petition," she announced, composing herself. "But I want regular visits with my nephew." "That has always been your right," Gustav assented. "Peter loves your visits when you're not trying to push him away from us." The meeting ended with a verbal agreement. As they left the office, Peter grabbed Victoria's hand, as he used to when he was younger. "Are we going home?" he asked, his eyes full of hope. "We're going home," she confirmed, squeezing his hand. 6 months passed. Life on the Isle of Palm's property had found a new balance. The pain of Selina's absence would never completely disappear, but it slowly transformed into a gentle presence of memories and teachings. On a sunny May afternoon, Victoria, Gustav, and Peter gathered in the garden for a special occasion. Judge Maurice Fountain, a longtime friend of Gustav's, smiled as he held official documents. "Everyone ready?" he asked, looking especially at Victoria. The young woman, now 15, nodded, tears of happiness in her eyes. "By the power vested in me by the South Carolina Court of Justice, I officially declare the adoption process concluded. Victoria Smith is now, for all legal purposes, Victoria Smith Mendonça, daughter of Gustav Mendonça." Peter was the first to hug Victoria, jumping with joy. "Now it's official. You're my sister on paper too." Gustav hugged them both, his heart overflowing with emotion. The journey there had not been easy. The bureaucracy of adopting a teenager, especially after so many accusations from Helen, had required patience and determination. But finally they were legally what they already were in their hearts, a family. That night, Victoria sat under the mango tree in the garden, the same place where years earlier she had cried because of bullying at school, and where Gustav had consoled her, telling his own story. "May I join you?" Gustav's voice interrupted her thoughts. She smiled, making room on the bench. "Of course, Dad." The word still sounded new, but perfectly fitting. It didn't replace the memory of Anthony, the biological father she had never known, but honored the man who had truly fulfilled that role in her life. "What are you thinking about?" Gustav asked, sitting beside her. "How life comes full circle. That rainy day when I gave my jacket to Peter, I never imagined I'd be here 7 years later as part of this family." "Your mother called it destiny," Gustav smiled. "She believed that some souls are meant to meet, no matter the paths they take." "I miss her every day," Victoria confessed, a lump in her throat. "Me too," Gustav admitted, taking her hand. "Your mother taught me to live again after Beatrice left. She showed me that the heart can heal and expand." "Did you two love each other?" Victoria asked, verbalizing what she had always suspected but never dared to ask. Gustav was silent for a moment, looking at the starry sky. "Yes," he finally replied, "in a different way, more mature than what I experienced with Beatrice. It was a love made of small moments of trust, of complicity in raising you two. We never needed to define or name it, but it was there growing every day." "Why did you never officially get together?" "Your mother had her principles. She didn't want anyone to think she was with me out of self-interest. And then when she found out about the connection with your father, she became even more cautious." He smiled sadly. "I guess we both thought we'd have all the time in the world." The silence that followed was comfortable, full of mutual understanding. "And now, Victoria Smith Mendonça, what are your plans?" Gustav asked, changing to a lighter tone. "Still thinking about California?" "Yes, but not immediately. I decided to take the COFC entrance exam first. I want to stay close for a few more years, finish the conservatory here. And I've been thinking..." "About what?" "About creating a foundation, in my mother's honor, to help children with sick parents, so that no one has to sell cookies in the rain to buy medicine." Gustav's eyes shone with pride. "That's a wonderful idea. The Selena Smith Foundation. We can start as a pilot project in the Battery where it all began," Victoria continued, enthusiastic. "Offer medical assistance, educational support, temporary shelter if needed. Count on me for whatever you need. Mendonça Construction will be the first sponsor." Peter appeared in the garden, still ecstatic about the formalization of the adoption. "What are you two plotting here alone? We have a celebration happening inside." The three returned home, where a small party with close friends and beloved staff celebrated the officialization of what everyone already knew. Gustav, Peter and Victoria were a family, united not by blood, but by daily choices of love and trust. 6 years passed. The auditorium of the College of Charleston was packed for the graduation ceremony. Among the music graduates, Victoria, now 21, received her diploma with honors, specializing in composition and classical guitar. In the audience, Gustav and Peter, now a 19-year-old studying civil engineering, applauded proudly. Helen, who over the years had softened her stance, especially after starting therapy to deal with her sister's grief, sat beside them, genuinely happy for the niece she had finally accepted as part of the family. After the ceremony, during the reception in the university gardens, Victoria stepped onto the small makeshift stage, taking the microphone. "I'd like to make a special announcement," she said with the confidence of an accomplished woman. "Today we celebrate not only my graduation, but also the 3rd anniversary of the Selena Smith Foundation, which has already served over 200 families in Charleston and the surrounding area." Enthusiastic applause echoed through the garden, and I have the honor of announcing that, starting next month, we will expand to California, in partnership with the National Conservatory, offering music scholarships for talented young people from underprivileged communities. More applause as Gustav and Peter approached the stage. "None of this would be possible without these two people," Victoria continued, her voice thick with emotion. "My father, Gustav, who taught me that true strength lies in believing in people, and my brother Peter, who showed me that family is who stands by your side in difficult times." The three embraced amidst a shower of applause. At that moment, Victoria felt as if Selena were present, smiling with pride. Life continued its course. Victoria divided her time between a promising musical career, with compositions already nationally recognized, and the administration of the foundation, which had become her true passion. Peter, following his father's footsteps in engineering, brought innovative ideas to the construction company, focused on sustainability and social housing. Gustav, although still at the helm of the business, delegated more and more responsibilities to the young people, proud of the legacy they built together. On a warm summer afternoon, almost 15 years after their first encounter in the rain, Victoria walked through the Battery, now a confident 32-year-old woman. Passing St. Michael's Church, she noticed a girl of approximately 7 selling colorful bracelets on the steps. "They're pretty," she commented, approaching. "Did you make them?" The girl nodded shyly. $5 each. I'm saving money for my mom's medicine." Victoria's heart ached, recognizing her own story in those hopeful eyes. "I'll take all of them," she decided, taking out her wallet. "And you know what? I know a foundation that can help your mom get the medicine she needs." As she wrote down the address of the Selena Smith Foundation on a piece of paper, her cell phone rang. It was Gustav, asking if she was already on her way to family dinner. "I'm going," she replied, smiling. "I just made a new friend here in the Battery. And yes, I'm bringing the vegetables you asked for. You don't need to keep reminding me as if I were Peter." Hanging up the phone, she handed the paper and money to the girl. "Take your mom there tomorrow, okay? Ask for Celia, she'll take care of you." The girl smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, ma'am. God bless." On the way home, because that's what the Isle of Palm's property was, home, hearth, refuge, Victoria reflected on the cycles of life. The gesture of kindness that had transformed her destiny was now repeated through her, creating new possibilities for another child. Upon arriving, she found Peter on the veranda, working on his laptop. Gustav was in the kitchen, trying without much success to prepare a special moqueca for dinner. "Need help there?" she asked, placing the shopping bags on the counter. "Your mother made it look so easy," Gustav sighed, looking lost among the various pots. "She had a gift," Victoria agreed, grabbing an apron. "But we can try together." As father and daughter laughed, trying to recreate Selena's recipe, Peter appeared at the kitchen door. "I had an idea for the next phase of the foundation," he announced, excited. "A special program for children whose parents are absent for long periods. We can offer not only material assistance but emotional support, after-school activities, vocational guidance." "That's an excellent idea," Victoria approved. "Let's discuss it after dinner." Sitting at the table, sharing the moqueca that, despite their efforts, didn't come close to the one Selena prepared, they talked about the future, about new projects, about the small joys of everyday life. It wasn't a traditional family. It didn't follow conventional patterns. But it was real, forged in moments of pain and joy, built on daily choices to stay together, to believe in each other, to transform coincidences into destiny. And as the sun set over Charleston Harbor, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, 3 hearts beat in unison, united by a bond that transcended blood, time, and circumstances, the indestructible bond of chosen love, renewed every day forever and ever. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Victoria, Peter, and Gustav's story has touched your hearts and shown how a simple act of kindness can transform destinies. For more heartwarming stories like this, we have prepared a special playlist that you can access by clicking the link on the left. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the transformative power of love and compassion. Every day we bring new narratives that explore the complexity of human relationships and the beauty of second chances. Let us know in the comments what your favorite part of this emotional journey was, and if you have ever experienced a moment where a small gesture completely changed the course of your life. Until the next story.